I remember vividly as a 19-year-old Yeshivat HaKotel student, going with my rebbeim, going with my teachers and some of the members from our yeshiva on Yom Hazikaron to Har Herzl. And I remember being very, very moved by the ceremony, by the commentary, by the stories that were being told, the lives of Jewish heroes, the lives that we commemorated then and annually every single year on Yom HaZikaron. Lives that were lost, cut short, lives that were given for the ultimate sacrifice of our beloved Tzenu HaKadosha, our beloved Israel. But there was one thing that struck me then that I think about annually. It reminds me of the extraordinary spirit of reflection and commemoration that brings us here together tonight for those who are gathered in person and those who are participating via Zoom. As I was making my way around the cemetery, reading the names of the holy ones who gave their lives and lost their lives, I was very taken by the ages of those who had lost their lives. 17 years old, 18 years old, 19 years old, 20 years old, 21 years old. And I was 19 years old at the time, and I remember vividly seeing the age multiple times, 19, and thinking about my life, and those lives, and how incredibly thankful I was and continue to be for those who lost their lives. How dedicated I am, and we all must be, to make sure it is that those lives lost, lives not lost in vain. For us to safeguard, to vanguard, to preserve Kedushas Eretz Yisrael, and to reflect on our National Day of Reflection, our Memorial Day for the fallen soldiers of the Israeli Defense Forces, those who lost their lives in defense of Israel, and those who lost their lives in the face of the hands of terror. Rabbi Yisrael Meir Lal's book, Orosh Shel Olam, he writes the famous story of the student of the Talmud from the Yeshiva of Kol Torah in Yerushalayim who came and approached the Rosh Yeshiva, Rosh Shlomo Zalman Auerbach, Zecher Tzadik, the Kodesh Livracha, and he asked him the following question. He said, Rebbe, I want to know if it would be permissible, if it would be allowed for me to travel to the Tzafon, to go up to the Galil, to go up north, to go to the Kivrei Tzadikim, to go to the graves of righteous people, and to pray there. Would it be okay for me to go? Shlomo Zalman answered and said that it's better for you to stay in yeshiva, it's better for you to study Torah. To which he persisted and asked again, Rebbe, isn't there a time that it would be appropriate for me and for my friends to go to visit the graves of the tzaddikim? Doesn't the Rosh Yeshiva himself go and pray at the graves of the tzaddikim? And Rosh Shlomo he answered, in order to pray at the graves of tzaddikim, one does not have to go travel up north to the Galil. Whenever I feel the need to pray, to daven at the graves of tzaddikim, the holy and the righteous ones, I go to Mount Herzl. I go to the National Cemetery for the Fallen IDF soldiers in Yerushalayim, close by. The graves of the soldiers who fell al Kiddush Hashem for the sanctification of God's name. And so tonight, as we reflect upon the memory of those who lost their lives, we celebrate the life of soldiers who gave themselves in tremendous service to our people and to our land. And as we honor parents who sent their son in service as a lone soldier, to hear their story, we'll be inspired, and we will, with the mandate of Am Yisrael Chai, understand that the legacy of those who lost their lives, it's ours to preserve, to keep strong, and to always he scored to always remember. If I could ask you please at this time to rise, as I ask Nadav to light a memorial candle in memory of the fallen, the 24,056 soldiers and security personnel. We commemorate their loss and who made the ultimate sacrifice in defense of our beloved Eretz Yisrael. Men and women, young and old, from every single walk of life, all united in their final moments. I ask you please remain standing for a moment of reflection with the silent. Please be seated. I'm very honored this evening that we are joined by members of our community. Both served in the IDF and have served through sending their children. And so tonight I would like to thank, first of all, Sarit, Nadav, and Eric, presenting your families for being here tonight. Tonight's an opportunity for us to celebrate you, to appreciate your sacrifice and your tremendous service. Nothing makes us prouder as a community to stand strong and connected. Libi b'Mizrach, as we say, our hearts are in the east. That's not just hyperbole or just word. It's in what we feel. It's how we think. It's the direction towards which we pray. And so tonight is an opportunity for us, and the youngsters who are here, to hear your story and to share with us some of your experience. I would be remiss if I did not mention the presence of Mayor Rappaport, our beloved Buchenwald survivor who last week on Yom HaShoah told us the story of survival in the face of the greatest tragedy facing modern Jewish history. And tonight in Israel, juxtaposed to today, Yom Hazikaron, tonight is Yom HaAtzmaut, which we will celebrate as a community tomorrow. And to go from that darkness to then the establishment of our beloved Eretz Yisrael, to celebrate our independence, and where we are today as a people, it brings us here to tonight's reflection. So I'm very appreciative to the three of you for joining me here and for offering to share your story, and we have no doubt that it will be an inspiration. Feel free, please, not to be limited by the questions, just as a framework towards which we can begin conversation. We are so interested in all that you have to share. So let me begin. Nadav and Sarit, are you able to share with us, first and foremost, how old you were when you were entered and drafted into the Israeli Defense Forces, and what it was like at that age, leaving your families, knowing that you were going to serve? What was the mentality? What was it like to actually leave and then serve? If you could just tell us a little bit about that.
Thank you. Well, first of all, I joined the army voluntarily when I was 15. I was in Army boarding school. I was Air Force Army boarding school. We actually were only 3 girls between, I would say, 100 boys. It was hard. It was really hard to understand. You come in, like, I saw this commercial on TV that this is the second year that they actually opened to girls coming to an army boarding school. And I wanted to join. I mean, like, I thought, what can be much better than an army? You're doing something for the country. You're going to learn to become something that can contribute to your country. And that's what I did. I volunteered when I was 15, after a huge fight with my parents, to go to an army boarding school. It was Air Force Army boarding school. The first 2 years was very hard. So when I finally joined the army when I was 18 and a half, it was quite easy. I was like, everybody around me was like new soldiers. I was very like, okay, I'm fine. I survived 2 years. This is really small. Being part of the army changed me. It gives you sudden pride to grow in Israel. I'm proud in the Israel country. I'm proud in my country. I love my country. I think that born in Israel, raised in Israel, and go to the army, you learn to love the land. You need to understand that for me, moving over to the United States, and I see Memorial Day in the United States, like, I can do this on Memorial Day. Israel Memorial Day, we close everything. 5 o'clock, everything shut down. There is nothing open, no restaurant, no pubs, no store, everything is shut down. The entire country under sadness. If you turn the TV, there is no show. You only hear the name of the soldiers that died for this country. Whether they were killed by the war or whether they were terror attack, but you hear every soldier. Some people said to me, you know, not every house in Israel loves someone. It's not so much true. Not every house in Israel loves someone, but during the Memorial Day, we all became connected to each other. And as being a soldier, it creates friendship for life. I'm 48 years old and have friends since I was 15 from there that I'm still in touch. And this is something that's only someone of being in Israeli army can understand. The opportunity to be part of something that you can admire. And I was actually part of the Israeli Air Force, and I admired the Israeli Air Force.
It's okay, before answering the question, I was going to share a story that I just heard. You mentioned Meir, and Rabbi, we spoke of Shabbat, we spoke about sort of how Yom HaShoah and Yom HaZikaron are connected. And I just heard the story, so before coming here, I called the person and I said, can I share the story? And she said, yeah, please go for it. So we have a teacher to our kids here, teaches them piano. Her name is Shir. And she told me that like 4 weeks ago, she got a call from her father and told her that Saba Yitzchak, her grandfather, was a Holocaust survivor, passed away. And she couldn't make it to the funeral. She couldn't make it to the Shiva. She was very close to him. He was very, very close to him. So she thought, what could she do? You know, she's by herself in her apartment. She just heard that her grandfather passed away. So the only thing she could think of was to go to Costco. She said, that's the only thing that can comfort me to feel a little bit good. She said, I like to buy stuff to feel like I have a big family. And she went to Costco, she filled out her cart, and she's standing in line to pay. She's standing in line to pay. This older gentleman, like, comes sort of next to her. And then the guy behind the cashier tells them, all the gentlemen, excuse me, please don't cut off the line. I said, no, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut off the line. But she was so emotional at that point. She burst crying. She realized that the people didn't understand why she cried so much. So she said, I'm sorry. She couldn't stop. I said, I'm just sorry. I just heard that my grandfather, Saba Yitzchak, was a Holocaust survivor, just passed away. I'm sorry. And basically, she just was so embarrassed that she moved to the side. She told me to find the stuff she can pack. She just wanted to get out and to leave because she was so embarrassed of what happened. She gets back to herself. She walks back to the cashier. And she sees this older gentleman who just paid for $340 shopping that she did. Opened his arms wide and he says, come here. He tells her, my name is Yitzchak. I'm 95 years old and Holocaust survivor. She told me, I literally spoke to her 15 minutes ago. She said, how would know? I told her, I love you. I said, I love you too. She said she felt like her grandmother to send someone to her, say goodbye. She was so emotional, she just left the place. And she realized she didn't take his phone number. Every day since then, she came over at the same time, waiting by close to the sea. 2 weeks later, they came. She sent new information. Happens to be Hezekiah in his house. Next week, she's going to his house to play with her father, her grandfather's son, was the commander of the Holocaust. And when you say, what's the connection between the Holocaust and the army and everything we experience today? I think the story just tells it all. It's all one big thing of Israel. It's such a moving story. Well, how old were you when you were drafted? What was your role? What was your responsibility? And tell us, if you can, a little bit as a reflection of what is Yom Hazikaron for you. So I was 19. I went to Yeshiva Haaretz for the year, and then I went with my family to Tzachtanim, paratroopers. For me, it was very hard. The idea of the army, that there's someone who's actually younger, new, and tells you what to do, and no room to think. Because the whole idea of the army is that you have to be disciplined. For me, it was very, very difficult. I'm also a little bit spoiled, so the army conditions weren't so much fun for me. As soon as I finished the army, the paratroopers moved to this beautiful new base, air conditioning and stuff. Of course, it was only after I moved out of the army. But, as you just said, there's something that you don't realize every time when you go through the difficulties of the army. But when you're able to think about the big picture and to understand that you are doing something that for 2,000 years the Jews have come back, that we are here to protect our Jewish people, and that's the last place that we can do it. And just think about it. And you realize what an amazing school to be able to do like the time of the David HaMelech, that we are the people who were literally guiding the Jewish people. It's just what I asked about Yom Hazikaron. I was looking at my phone today, so all my WhatsApp groups are on mute. But there's one WhatsApp group that I don't need to mute. Because it's quite all the year besides yesterday and today. And it's called Zochim et Miki. Miki Davish was with me in the unit. And he was killed in exchange of fire with terrorists at the Kedah Joseph's farm. It was a very difficult story because, to be honest, I think it was a big screw up from the Israeli side. It should have happened. But it happened. And he's not with us anymore. And every year, it's more than 25 years ago, every year, all the Chevron in the WhatsApp group, they go there, and his mother makes dinner for everyone. And they go all the way up there, it's 2 hours drive. His mother makes dinner for everyone, and she asks if you want to buy food. And Nikki stays 20 years old. And the guys are grown, they got married, they have kids, some of them have grandchildren. And every year you see how life goes, and only Nikki stays on the wall. So for me, Yom Hazikaron is my time to think about Nikki. You know, the guy was so funny. The guy that I remember, it's amazing. You remember the jokes, and you remember when I got upset at him. But he never got to get married, never got to start a family. And this is the time when we start from everything. And we have to remember the real sacrifice.
So powerful, thank you for sharing. So Eric, I know that you were one of the parents of a little soldier. So you must have been so very proud, and still are no doubt so proud of your son for wanting to serve the IDF. Tell us a little bit about what that conversation was like, what that decision was like, living at the time where you were living. How was that for you as parents to come to terms with the initial interest that your son had to serve the IDF? How was Yom Hazikaron going to impact for you and your family?
Thank you for the question and for being here. Thanks for sharing. The first thing is this was set up to be not a choice of Adam's, our oldest son Adam. He's 27 now. We met earlier in 2009. He was 14. The advice was move sooner, get them socially inculcated by 8th grade, 7th grade, better than 9th, 10th. The earlier the better, probably very much because of the Army looming is a big life-changing type of an event for someone who's not raised knowing to do it. When we got to Israel, we met many people who had people serving, and we knew that that was going to be, that he was going to serve. What changed when she for us is I traveled back and forth. Very successful Aliyah, where he was a great partner in it. Adam did great in school, he was terrific. But life brought us back 4 years later, having moved back here. And Adam made a decision. He had a discussion, actually, it was my father, his grandfather. My father did a very dramatic type of a thing, saying, you know, Adam, you're an adult, you're a man, you have to make your own decision. They had a real bonding over this, tremendous pride. Everything we're connected to Israel through my father and my mother. It's how a lot of us, how we are. And Adam stayed, went to a Mechina, and we moved back to New Jersey. So for Orly and I, it was a little different than the typical, very enviable families here who send their children over. We actually left our son versus send him to go to Israel to serve. It's a little bit of a different vantage point and experience. I will say that in the decision-making process, I didn't know how to advise him. I'd never served. I dreamed of serving and would love to serve. But I will share this as the extra, if we're getting to your second question. I picked 3 people I trusted very much, Israeli friends of mine. If you could, you know, someone like if I knew Nadav, I would have asked Nadav. If I knew Said, I would have asked Said. I picked a friend I'd like to name him. My friend Reuven Avital served many, many years ago, and gave me sage advice on how to speak to Adam and what to think and help them be interviewing and they're figuring out where they're going to go and what they're going to do. His advice was, don't put your hand or your thumb on anything, let it just happen itself. And I took that advice. And I think with some everyone that helped, took that advice. Second person I went was a friend of mine, Giddy Greenstein. Giddy Greenstein was number 2. He was chief of staff for Ehud Barak. He was at Camp David. He's done tremendous things for Israel privately and otherwise. I asked him, he had served in an elite unit. He gave advice. I had Adam meet each of them. And I met another friend who was the head of the IDF He was the Surgeon General. He was the person who walked Eli Charlie in the video. It's a Christ, who later in life asked me, "Is that for you at your university? I've been invited to come speak there," but that's for another story. And they really comforted and helped Adam, I think, in me, in my deficiencies as a father, not being able to advise him from experience. So, but Adam went in the army. It was really what the kids do in school. They go to school together, and people can tell me better than others. With advantage and not, but everyone goes to the army, and it's an ultimate meritocracy. But I was comforted by the fact that the top people in Israel, the most established parents my age I knew, they did not think that they should influence their children too much. They should just let it naturally happen. The army would find the right thing for them, and no one wanted the responsibility of putting their son in harm's way or their daughter, because they didn't want to be responsible for that decision, saying you should do this. They wanted it more to just help happen. The significance of Yom Hazikaron for us, I'll just say, public life in Israel is amazing. We all know it. We know it from the hotels, and we know it if we've had the chance to live there. We live in an amazing small city, not so small in Israel, Banana. But the 4 years we were there, the entire, to like what Sarit said, the whole town came out. We watched on a mural wall about the size of this back wall, 2/3 of it, the photos of every soldier. Our kids were young at that time. We all went, one of them even in a stroller still, and the speeches were all Hebrew. I didn't understand much because I was looking at Renata speaking my language, but it was solemn moments. It was long. It was a couple of hours. They put up the pictures of everyone from our town who had passed or went to Olam Haba for having the mitzvah protecting Eretz Yisrael. And I can only think that America was probably at one time, the United States, an amazing. America today, we're kind of spoiled. We're past some of these conflicts and wars that we don't. But maybe post World War II time, maybe 1950s, there was some. I remember my little town where we went out to the 4th of July. I think that the whole town embraces and on Yom Hazikaron they mourn together. They reflect. But right that next night, like you said, Rabbi, the Yom HaAtzmaut, it turns into just such an appreciation for the sacrifice. And I think the fact that how we as Jews look at it and how we were able to experience it live, living there, words can't really describe what that meant for us and what it still means for us, and how it holds hope. Not just hope, really, tremendous pride in who we are and how we live and everything, every facet of life. And I think that this service of protecting Eretz Yisrael is merely one of them, a very important one today, but merely one of them.
So proud of you and so proud of your son. Sarit, Nadav, if you could tell us a little bit, I'm sure, day in the life of Army and certainly being raised with the mentality that that's eventuality, that's the great pride in service to your country, to our country. I'm sure there's a litany of just so many examples, stories, missions, stories. Is there an experience that stands out, perhaps one that you can share, that among of the so many that you would say stand out, one that you would say never will be forgotten, something that was unique, something that was extraordinary? Was there a mission? Was there a relationship? Was there something that happened that you would say there's one part, one time in your service that you bring us into a day in or a place of?
You can spend the whole night telling stories. Days ago, I don't remember where it was. So if you guys were doctors here, they started talking about medical school. So I asked you go, you tell all this army story. But one specific thing that as I get older, I think how crazy it is. And not every day of the army. I was in the Gush Etzion area after the Goldstein story in Marada Makpela. Tremendous amount of tension in the air. There were many warnings about potential retaliation, organized and unorganized, by our villages in the area. It's funny, so we're doing it. So we together, I was in the regular army and the reserve. So the driver of we're like always three, like in a car like that. the driver of my car was really appreciating. Louis, it was an NK, he was the driver, very special human being. And I was sort of the commander of this specific tour. And then we got a report that there were some issues of throwing stove or Molotov cocktail, whatever it is, in an area, so we had to go full speed ahead. Which also, you think about it, it's like not even a second of hesitation or fear or whatever it is. It's like the minute you were, it's like, I don't know if it's the training or whatever, but I'm sure it will take someone who's 40 years old, you know, I may not react the same way. Somehow, you know, again, thinking about right now as I'm telling the story, we go over there, and literally, as they see us coming and we drive, was driving very fast, as we get in there, we see a few Arabs that were busy, I guess, throwing the Molotov cocktails. So they saw us coming, they started running. So we got to the car as fast as we can. We unloaded from the car and started chasing them. Now, the risk is that you don't know if they're part of an organized group. You want to make sure that you catch them, because the most important thing, and that's something we used to work with the Shabbat, is to try and get as much information as possible, so you know who's behind it, you know the people. So you really want to get your help, you want to get hold of someone and to see what's going on. The second thing is that there's a danger that guys like that, you don't know if they have other weapons behind it, so it's a danger that we have to deal with. So we started running, but the distance was too far. So then there is a certain way of what you need to do if you want to stop someone and he's running out. If there is no immediate danger to you, you cannot shoot them. But what you can do is you say stop, and then say stop while I shoot. And then if you think there is potential danger with it, you can try and shoot to the legs after that point. And because given the whole situation, I had to make a decision on the spot. And I told them stop while I shoot. And they ran, nothing happened. And that's what I made a decision, you know, do I try and shoot or not? And I'm sitting here, I'm describing it, but I don't know, a 19-year-old boy, that's what it was, people to this age, and you have to make a decision like that on the spot. And I remember that I basically decided that it's the right thing to do. And I took my gun, and actually I was a very, I was a good shooter, meaning that I knew that I was okay to start shooting. So I took my gun, and it's hard because you're breathing hard, and you have to, everybody shoots know you want to be as relaxed as possible, you want to go in between breaths, and I took my gun and I basically aimed towards the legs, and I took a shot. And at that point I missed, they were too far, nothing happened, and then the guy gave me back, I said, no more allowed shooting, everybody stop, the whole thing stopped over. But an experience of being in a situation, you have to make a decision and you have to decide if you're going to take something which is potentially so risky, and if you don't take it, it makes it riskier. That's something that looking back is a very strong experience.
I don't know about everyone else here, but I was like living in that moment with you. Right? It's like, also I'm not sure what to do. And you was infected. So any story that stand out?
Yeah, so I was an Army Air Force girl, and we didn't have so much close contact with people, terrorists or any groups. I was actually in a special unit in the Air Force. It was a smart weapon. It is the one you hear all this special missiles that hit their land, especially in their houses. But during the time that I was in service, there was rockets. Remember that? Yes, so rockets. It was like some kind of an operation, and Israel just had. They didn't have enough missiles. They didn't have enough bombs. They just took whatever they have in the bunker and just toss out. I mean, the practice toss out. We didn't know if it will explode, if not explode. And this is some of the situation that Israel is. We have an amazing army and amazing air force, but we not all the time have enough weapons. Sorry to say that. So for me, the experience was just white nights, to the nights, like a airplane coming in and out. I was the one that loading. I was just the one that give them the weapon, going on the airplane, make sure that it's working, and then the airplane going up there to bounce someplace. But I want to share a story. First of all, my aunt is actually almanat tzahal, a widow, an army widow, IDF widow. Her husband died in the Yom Kippur War. She was pregnant 3 months. And so for us in our family, even that I didn't know it because it died much before I was born, in our family we have a lot of respect to the army and to the soldiers. They understand the meaning of growing up with the missing of a person in your life, even that none of us know him because I was the first granddaughter in our family. I didn't know the person, but I knew and grew up with his son that grew up without a father. So this is one of the sad things that for us that I think Rafi was with us. She was always getting this special tickets to go to the army, this corps performance. And since she was getting one from his group, he was in the Totchanim. The cannon, yeah, he was a tank, the cannon. So she was going always to him. She was the one that get it from our city. Me and Rafi was going there. So being and seeing these Memorial Days was very meaning for me, even for Rafi, my husband, that is American. The other story that I want to share with you, my brother is actually a Givari soldier. He was 18 and a half, and like the story that my dad was telling me, my brother, as I remember him, he's almost 40 now, but when he joined the army, he was this most amazing kid. And I wish that everybody knew him. He's still alive, but he was this amazing kid with stars in his eyes. And I don't know that for all the soldiers, the kids that go to the army. He was, before the age of 19, he was like in the army, like he just finished the first training, and they sent him to the Gush to watch the village. And one of his commanders, it was not his direct commander, it was the commander from the other platoon, tried to explain them how they check the arms that come in to work in the village, in the field. While he's explaining the new soldiers, my brother was one of them. There was an arm that just opened his back, took a gun, and shot that 20-year-old commander in the head. And I remember after that, my brother changed. He never smiled. Until now, he's 40. I never seen him smile the way that he smiled before. Just like something, he lost something, the sparkling in his eye, he lost it. And for us as Israelis, we see it every day. Whether we grow up with the exploding bombs and weapons and the terror in the street, or the missiles that we get, whether it's from Gaza or Lebanon during the time. And Nadav also grew up from Iraq. To see kids that even that with all the terror that they grew up, go with the sparkling eyes to the army and come back with non-sparkling eyes. It was very sad. So for us as Israelis to understand the meaning and the feeling, how much this day is very important to us and how much this country is important to us, we don't have a different country. If God forbid something will happen, this is the only way that we can go. And I don't know if everybody know that during COVID time, the only country in the world that actually sent an airplane to pick up her citizen back home was Israel. Everywhere, whether it was Colombia, because I was getting text message from my friend that's still in the army, and they said, we just going to Colombia. There is no flight to Colombia, but we fly to Colombia to pick up Israeli citizens, soldiers that just went to do hiking in Colombia, or Brazil, or places like Peru, or places don't even think about it. Israel will fly there, and they went to pick up kids from there or Israeli citizens from there. And this pride, that's what we feel every day.
That story reminds me of a story that has recently been told that Natan Sharansky was speaking recently at a Sheva Brachot. He was describing how, as a young boy traveling between Russia and Ukraine, that the stigma of being a Jew for him and for the youngsters, that was being maligned, that was possible or certain death. And that today, if you say that you're a Jew and you live in the Ukraine and you're running or needing to be home, and you need a place that's safe here, and there is no place that will take you in as your home like Israel. So being a Jew and knowing about your homeland is not anything other than the greatest form of pride. That there is no feeling like touching down on neighbor in Israel's soil. The pride to be with the soldiers. A number of years ago, every single time I go to Israel, I spend very precious time with soldiers. I often go to Pinat Hama, BJC Yom, right in that junction. That junction area, right in the area where Ari Fold, the blessed memory, lost his life, dear friend of our community, spoke in our shul. And a few years ago, before COVID, I had an opportunity to speak to a brigade that was headed to Jenin. And I was able to go with military clearance to go speak to them, brought them food, pizzas, various other. I had the opportunity for just a few moments to address them, to speak to them. I was very humbled to be in their presence. And I said to them that every single Shabbat, our shul, our synagogue, and synagogues around diaspora around the world pray for you, for your safety. You know how proud of you, and how worried we are, how thankful we are to you and for you. And so that story of having pride in our homeland and the pride of its preservation, and the tumultuous nature of the tension that exists between just the days juxtaposed, the emotional tension of Yom Hazikaron and Yom Hazikaron, that transition of extraordinary sadness to joy, jubilation. Tell us for a minute, if you can, both of you, and Eric as well, if you can share. What is that transition like? How is that transition possible? How can we understand Jews living in the diaspora so tethered to Eretz Israel, so worried about our soldiers, so proud of our soldiers, so thankful that the independent, sovereign, democratic, beloved Atzera Kadosh, that juxtapose those concepts of emotions. Tell us a little bit about how you as a soldier, and you as a father of a soldier, how were you able to manage, maneuver? How are you able to change such things?
So I think that we've done many mistakes since the establishment of Israel. But one of the smartest things that I think were done is the idea of Yom HaZikaron to be followed by Yom HaTzmaut. Because as a small kid, you understand that the foundation of the independence lies within those soldiers that sacrificed their lives. And without this, without the base, we would be standing there. And the hardest day for me to be in Israel in the whole year, not Rosh Hashanah, and it's not Yom Kippur, and it's not even Yom HaTzmaut, and not even Pesach, Shem HaZikaron. Because so it said, when you're in Israel, you feel it all around you. You turn on the radio, you hear these sad songs, and usually everybody goes to some Haskara or something. it's so present. You feel the past and future. And then at 8 o'clock, when you switch from the sadness mode to festivity, it's you feel in a way it was earned, and it's much more fulfilling to be able to be in simcha when you understand how hard we had to work and how much we had to sacrifice in order to.
I was thinking of the first part of your words. I don't know if I got the question totally. To be very honest, I was thinking when you were talking about, you mentioned before, I was thinking about that. And I might have gone a little lost, but I'll try to answer, I think, the spirit of what we were talking about here. As a parent of an Israeli who, having the status of a lone soldier who, being Israelis, because we're dual citizens, went away and left our son there. I think what I took from everything I learned is that someone had told me once, and I thought of this a lot, is that there's not a lot of pride. There's pride, but there's not a lot of glamour to service. Like you'll meet someone and you'll see them and say, "Isn't it great your son's serving? It's so great, it's so great." And you're like, "Yeah, it's really great that we defend Eretz Yisrael. It's great, you polite and everything." But the reality is that it's not so glamorous. It's just necessary. It's like the status of maybe where you're sleeping, or the base, or the job you get, or what you have to do in the training. So I think the amazing thing we have in the relationship of the diaspora, so with the people who serve in Israel at every step, and every citizen of Israel at every step, even the ones who aren't serving, the civilians, us unfortunately in harm's way also, is remarkable to who we are as people. And there's amazing things that happen along the way. I want to get to I think get to tell a story, but it'll tie in this idea, just quick ones. Experiences. My son was probably in his second year serving. He was in the Nahal unit. He was a mortars expert. He qualified because he was one of two guys over 5'10" who could either hold the machine gun or the mortars. So that was, I think, they give you the job, and here's the job. And he was at the post office in Manana in his uniform. And he called us up. They called Orly. He says, "I can't believe this would happen. You never going to believe what happened." And he said there was a guy who came up and just saw him with his bag, struggling, big bag, heavy stuff and equipment late in the day, and just handed him $100, 400 shekel, which is more than $100. And he couldn't believe that he didn't want to take. He couldn't believe, and the person said, "I remember what it was like when I was like your age, and when I was serving, I was carrying that bag." And I don't know if Nadav get experience. There's things, I call this almost like one of the miracles of Israel, miracles of the Jewish people. That kind of thing can happen. Fast forward, my son did a startup with his brother, my other son. And they're in the first month of this, and they decide they're going to get donuts or Krispy Kreme, and they're out there, and they find a guy laying in the street, not just a person. And they had done well in their particular business that day, and they gave $100 to this person laying in the street. Just a person who's laying there, like, and the guy who's laying in the street is looking up at them, like, "What's the catch to this? Why give me $100? 5 or 10, he might have taken 100. He thought my sons were weird." But I think when you have people like in the diaspora, there's so much support within Eretz Yisrael and outside of Eretz Yisrael for the soldiers, and for a person, male or female, who serves in any capacity, and the incredible connection we feel with them. And I want to say, I try deeply to think about all of them the same. One of the emotional things is, where's my son? Is he in harm's way? Where's my daughter? But I swear, when I did the prayer for everyone, I try to pray for everyone the same. That they're all our kids. I'm numb to statistics that we get. We had the number we said before we did the candle. It's a meaningful number because we can put it in historical perspective. But I think it's an amazing thing, and how much it's all about Hashem, thank God, that we are, as the Jewish people, that we have this meaning in our lives that we live and these connections to each other, not just to our immediate family, not just to our good friends, but to our families, our friends, our fellow people, our country, our God, our Torah, our land. It's an amazing thing. It's so unique in the world. I haven't watched one movie made of it, by other nations where it all ties together like that. They're missing at least 2 or 3 things in almost everything I'm seeing, unless I'm missing something. So I think it's, Baruch Hashem, we have this ability, and Baruch Hashem, we're one in, or like the 1 in 80 generations, maybe 82 generations that can just pick up a suitcase and go to Israel because of these amazing people like Nadav and Sarit. And I'll put my son in their company, but amazing. So thank you, Baruch Hashem.
So lucky, Baruch Hashem. Okay, with just a few moments left before we have to conclude tonight's program. For just a few moments, if I could just ask each of you, if you could just share with us a message. One final thought, perhaps, that you'd like to leave us all with tonight in the final moments of Yom Hazikaron as we transition into Yom Ha'atzmaut. One message for us. What can we take with us? The youngsters who are here, but really for all of us. Just a few moments. What would be your final message to us all?
I had a very difficult conversation last Shabbat with someone. And he told me something that's still sitting with me. He said, Nadav, this is someone from Israel. He said, listen, history repeats itself. Do you think the Jewish state will continue to exist? Look how it's being managed. It's a matter of time before the 3rd exile will happen. He said it with such a level of certainty. What do you think? There's no guarantee. Can you show me any guarantee that this is it? Talking to me about the Gilul or whatever. Show me one proof. Look what we're doing. Look what's going on in Israel. It's a matter of years, I don't know how many, before the 3rd exile is going to happen. It wasn't easy to hear it. But I thought, and I think this is the most important message. We cannot take anything for granted. We cannot take the Israeli army for granted. We cannot take the state of Israel for granted. And the same way that Israel is on the foundation of all the soldiers, each one of us, whatever small thing we can do to make sure that we can ensure the future of the Jewish people and of Israel, that's the part that can really change that history, that there isn't going to be a 3rd exile.
Okay, so just when I was thinking about it, like we finish in Yom Hazikaron, the Memorial Day, and we move into Yom Ha'atzmaut. And like Nadav said, this is the day I miss the most, that I'm not in Israel. I do think that if we will take Israel as granted, if my kids and the kids of the generation that born outside of Israel will take Israel out of granted. There are some Israelis that take it also out of granted. We will suffer from another Holocaust. There is nowhere for a Jewish person to be beside Israel. I think that connection to the Holocaust, Israel does not exist if there was not a Holocaust. But if we will give up and take Israel as granted, the nation of Israel will suffer from another Holocaust. Because this is the only place that can actually protect us as Jewish people.
I think that the uniqueness of these days together, Yom Hazikaron to Yom Ha'atzmaut, and the experiences that I had seeing it in Israel, I hope you all have the chance to see it, or if you've seen it many more times. It's I just think that the meaning of what we have is one of hope and knowing, let me say it a different way. I think it's too complicated what I was going to say. Let me do it a different way. Let me put it. My dad said that people don't appreciate what they get for free or what they don't work for. And what you have here with Yom Hazikaron, you have the work, and it's necessary work, non-glorious work, and you have the fruits of the benefit that come the next day, which is really it's freedom and pride and all the things that go with being a nation that's happy and contented together like we are. And it's very unique. And I think that we should remember and teach our children, for the younger ones here, you guys don't need free stuff. You know, thanks for sitting through this for an hour here, but you guys don't need free stuff. You don't need free phones. You don't need free education. I don't want to be too political, but you don't need free things. You need to work hard and do things and do what's necessary to help and protect, whether it's your family, your brother, your sister, your friend who's getting bullied in school. You gotta help and do good work hard in school, do those types of things. And then life rewards you with the satisfaction of your hard work and what you get from what you do. There's no free lunch, there's no free handouts. And Am Yisrael knows that more than anyone. And on Yom Hazikaron to Yom Ha'atzmaut, we get to share together this amazing Jewish, not Republican, Democrat, this Jewish idea of who we are and what we appreciate and what we have. And thank God for Hashem.
Thank you so much. It's fitting, it's appropriate as we conclude tonight's program. I'd like to call upon Hadav to lead us in the Yizkor, followed by Hatikva. If I could ask everyone to please rise.
יזכור אלוהים את שמות חיילי צבא ההגנה לישראל שמסרו נפשם על קדושת השם, העם והארץ, ונפלו מות גיבורים במלחמת השחרור ובמערכות סיני בתפקידי הגנה וביטחון. מנשרים קרנו מאריות בבאו ויחלצם לעזרת העם, ועירבו בדמם הטהור את רקפי אדמת קודשנו מדמעות סיני. זכר עקדתם ומעשה גבורתם לא יסופו מאיתנו לעולמים. תהיינה נשמותיהם צרורות בצרור החיים עם נשמות אברהם, יצחק ויעקב, ועם נשמות שאר גיבורי ישראל וקדושיו שבגן עדן, אמן.
Everybody for being here this evening for a very meaningful program. We're going to that.